Number 5. While Nintendo seemed to be shying away from the Mario series in the mid-90s, the then-exclusive Nintendo juggernaut known as Rare emphatically grabbed the platforming torch and created a side-scrolling masterpiece of their own, in order to continue the legacy, ironically starring the original princess-capturing villain that begot the Mario series. And after I had burned through this game several times over, I found myself no longer caring about the forthcoming of a third Mario title on the Super Nintendo. For this game had taken the 2D platforming formula, turned it on its head, and gave it a massive dose of steroids, and in the process, birthing what remains one of my favorite all-time franchises. As the beastly ape known as Donkey Kong and his puny, more nimble sidekick Diddy,
she's quick and nimble when she needs to be.
You venture through some of the coolest and most visually pleasing worlds to ever grace a video game at the time. Hell, even by today's standards, Donkey Kong Country is definitely easy on the eyes, made further enriching by the absolutely intoxicating and catchy tunes throughout the game. The musical score, much like the game itself, remains in my book among the greatest in gaming. It just adds an element of depth and an atmosphere that's unparalleled, and it draws you in even more than some of the technologically juiced up games of the modern era. Similar to Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country adheres to the fundamentals of 2D platforming while adding a unique flavor of its own. Nowhere is this more apparent than Donkey and Diddy's jungle creatures that you'll find throughout the game, each with their own unique abilities and styles of play. Myself, I prefer the beast that's Rambi the Rhino, as there's just something quite satisfying about stampeding through a line of enemies and taking out all in your wake as you smash through walls. The game treads a nice line of being simple enough that even an ape might be able to play, but at the same time, it's endlessly addictive and appealing to even the most hardcore of gamers. Thanks to the brilliant atmosphere that's a treat to both the ears and the eyes, but more so ridiculously the fun gameplay, Donkey Kong Country stands proud and tall as one of the few games in my library that I'll probably continue to play until I'm old and withered as Cranky Kong. Number 4. Nintendo's top franchise made an emphatic debut during the launch of the Super NES, and all of us Mario-obsessed children eagerly awaited the plumber's return. After all, how the hell can you top Super Mario Bros. 3, one of the greatest games of all time? Well, Nintendo delivered by taking the formula from the previous games and kicking it up several notches, with nicer graphics, new power-ups, awesome new characters, and a venture into yet another dimension. This time, Mario finds himself in Dinosaur World, and while perhaps not as varied and colorful as the Mushroom Kingdom, it's certainly just as memorable. I mean, it's hard not to be intrigued by places called the Vanilla Dome, Chocolate Mountain, and the Forest of Illusion. And let's not forget the awe-inspiring Star and Special Worlds, which made us feel like we've journeyed into some drug-induced time warp. Aside from the bizarre new settings that only Nintendo could be daft enough to think up, and the much more fleshed-out overworld, this game truly thrives with its new cast of characters. For instance, you've got the kick-ass Koopa Kids, each with their own distinct characteristics, and of course Mario's new weapon known as Yoshi, who is able to eat almost anything in his wake, whether truly edible or not. The game continues the solid fundamentals set by Super Mario 3 with its great, tight and responsive controls, colorful environments, and classic fast-paced platforming gameplay, while at the same time it gives it a new prehistoric skin and adds some new interesting characters that really put that annoying shrimp toad to shame. Super Mario World's like the Halo of Super Nintendo. Everybody who owns the console and their grandmother seems to have it and speaks highly of it. Number 3. Now we're really heading into glorious territory, the true gems among gems, and Super Mario RPG shines like a star among them. The game left an impression on many of us kids and teens of the 90s and has stuck with us to this day. You know you've got a classic when 15 years later you're still talking to your friends about that kick-ass lazy shell hidden in Nimbus Town, or those bizarre Yoshi races, or how about those damn catchy beats in Booster Tower. This is because true quality and true fun does not age, and neither will this game. Even though Nintendo and Squaresoft seemed like a match made in heaven, I was a little skeptical at first. After all, how could a fat plumber running across an obstacle course of bricks while stepping on turtles translate into an enchanting and epic RPG? Well, the two video game masterminds stepped up to the plate and proved that they can not only make a role-playing Mario game work, but also that they can make one of the greatest RPGs of all time. Square managed to take an already vast and mesmerizing universe and expand upon it more than ever thought possible. The game simply has it where it counts. Addictive gameplay that's far easy enough for the first-time RPG goers, but still provides depth, enjoyable catchy music, sharp graphics, an interesting cast of characters, and even a decent story. Well, at least for a Mario game. With an atmosphere that will get you further lost than a forest maze, and a deep and satisfying journey that seems to come to an end all too soon, it's now easy for me to understand why this game further expanded my love for Mario games, and it helped bring me to other RPGs like Dragon Quest and Secret of Mana, and I haven't looked back. With a massive appeal, fascinating new worlds, and a deep and satisfying drug trip of a journey, Mario RPG is just one of those games that everybody continues to harp on to this day, and for good reason. Number 2. Yeah, I know. Really? Another Donkey Kong Country on this list? But just hear me out. Seriously, this game deserves to be on this list just as much as the first one, and even more so. Donkey Kong Country 2 is that game you yearned for as soon as you burned through the first game, defeated K. Rool a little too quickly, and found yourself wanting more. Whereas Donkey Kong Country 1 was kinda like an appetizer of tasty buffalo wings and celery sticks, this sequel is like the classy filet and lobster dinner that satisfies your every craving. While the wings were certainly delicious, this meal of gaming delicacy takes the original formula and cranks it up to 11, leaving you entranced and enjoying every second of it. Ironically, the one and only thing that seems to be missing from this game is our ape hero himself, replaced by the banana-haired Dixie Kong, who, quite honestly, is far cooler and more helpful than the sluggish donkey, as she can use her hair to float like a parachute. She also plays a mean guitar lick for every level completing victory. With her welcome addition, and an assortment of new elements like the new animal buddies, DK coins which add greater challenge, and a larger assortment of creative new levels, you'll find that the original ape's absence will not really be missed. In keeping in the spirit of its predecessor, the sequel truly creates and fleshes out a universe of its own, and somehow manages to make it even more interesting than the first, on both the eyes and the ears. Seriously, this is some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game, and in this day and age where games come loaded with complex techno tracks and/or melodic classical compositions, that's saying a lot. The diversity of the worlds and the different types of character each of them have is really impressive, particularly for a game in this era. You've got a sunken battleship, an insane amusement park, a beehive, and a haunted graveyard. While they each have their own unique flavor and experience, you'll find yourself equally engrossed in each. You don't just play Donkey Kong Country 2, you become absorbed by it. It is a ride you find yourself returning to years later. And the best game to ever grace the Super Nintendo is... Forget Final Fantasy, forget Dragon Quest. Hell, even forget Chrono Trigger. This is the real deal. Yeah, I know I'll piss a lot of people off with that statement, but for my money, Secret of Mana is the true pinnacle of Squaresoft's greatness. Now, to be fair, I tend to hold a greater bias towards action-based RPGs as opposed to the turn-based stuff I mentioned. But regardless of your preference of RPG style, or preference of genre for that matter, Secret of Mana is a game that simply is off the charts fun and captivating. It's a serenading journey that will just have you completely engaged from start to finish. While the story is somewhat what you'd expect from your typical save-the-world Squaresoft game, the game itself is anything but typical. The setup's similar to old-school Zelda. Its rapid-fire action and intense battles leaves rarely a dull moment throughout. Secret of Mana contains a perfect balance of simplicity and complexity. The style of fighting is at first glance welcoming for the novice gamer to jump right into, but as you progress, you'll find that strategy and precision is the key for glory. The staple RPG tactic of frequent level grinding as you gain strength for yourself and your magic is present, but it never feels tedious or boring. The game manages to keep the mechanics, the battle system, and the progression all pretty cut and dry, while at the same time providing you an absolute plethora of depths, as whichever weapons and mana you decide to use the most will level up and grow stronger. Secret of Mana provides the rich atmosphere and epic scope of a traditional RPG, while giving you the intensity and instant gratification you might find in an action arcade-style game, keeping the boring fluff to a minimum. There isn't a whole lot along the lines of in-your-face narrative found in a lot of the more common RPGs of the modern era, but that's exactly why I like it, and besides, Secret of Mana doesn't need such trivial things to engross you in this game. The gorgeous, vibrant environments and some of the greatest music the SNES can crank out gives the game plenty of atmosphere where a huge, complex story isn't exactly missed. As you might have picked up on, addictive gameplay has been a trend of my favorite SNES titles, and Secret of Mana definitely isn't lacking here. You'll find yourself absolutely glued to the colorful glow of your TV screen as you fight your way through enemies that appear to be out of Alice in Wonderland. Truly a game for the ages, Secret of Mana is the very essence of RPG magic, and will cast a spell of bliss on you that never withers. And it's one that many modern RPGs with their flashy 3D graphics even can't break. Yeah, I realize there are several more great games that didn't make my list, but that only shows how awesome the Super Nintendo library is, not necessarily that there's anything wrong with the games I didn't pick. To select only 10 games is certainly a challenge, and if your game didn't make the list, don't whine about it, rather make your own list. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more enlightening and entertaining gaming content from the Warp Zone.